So I just turned 53. I am so excited and I'm so grateful to the Lord for giving me another year. And you know, on your birthday, you normally get blessed. But I was also just wondering, what can I do just to give back to people, to encourage people, and to also bless them? And I came up with sharing some life lessons and sharing things that I have experienced or picked up and or observed over the years. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. And I've done this before. I did it when I turned 50. Over a series of actually 4 videos, I shared life lessons. And that was 50 to, to celebrate 50 years. So I can assure you today, I'm not going to be sharing 53 lessons. I'll be sharing quite a few, and I've limited them, but I will probably then share some more later this year or maybe next year. Now, these things that I'm going to share, they are not peculiar to me. A lot of you, many of you will be able to relate to more than one, to probably a lot of them. So sit back and relax. This is quite a relaxed video actually, and enjoy. And in the process, you're actually going to get to know more about me. And here and there, I'll be sharing some of my own experiences. So yeah, I'm outside. I'm in the shade, but it's quite hot. So got my water here. Got my water. And you can see I'm wearing something relaxed today. So sit tight and enjoy today's video. So let's begin these life lessons. I've got them written down because I can't remember everything. So the first thing that I've learned is that people are more important than things. They're more important than money. And what do I mean by that? You know, we all want things and to accomplish things, and people want money because money is a tool, obviously, to be able to accomplish a lot of things. But we don't need to bulldoze our way and step on people's toes and hurt people in the process. We have to remember that money and things, you can lose them overnight. You can also gain them overnight. Relationships, they take time to actually form, but you can lose them overnight. It's very important to always remember the people around you, to be considerate, to continue being compassionate and loving, and all those virtuous things in the process of you progressing in life and acquiring things and so forth and accomplishing things. The imagery I kind of get is of someone wanting to go to the front of the line to get something, and they're busy elbowing people, and stepping on people's toes so that they can get to the front. And they will get to the front, but was it worth it? The way that you did it, you'd still have gotten to the front, but you could have done it in a more respectful way, in a nicer way, in a kinder way. So yes, people are more important than things and money. And then the second thing that I've learned, over the years is that character is actually more important than talent. And what do I mean by that? Everybody has got giftings, talents, skills, even anointings, just different strengths and capabilities. But you know what? That needs to be governed by your character. You need to have a good character. You actually need to have a godly character. And I've found that God develops your character in different ways, but one of those ways is through challenges. So you find that as you get challenges in your life, you develop certain traits that perhaps you wouldn't have developed at all or to that degree had you not had those challenges. For example, you may learn to be more patient, you may learn to be more resilient, more disciplined, and that kind of thing because of a challenge. And so, or to persevere more because you've had a challenge, and so now you've got that built into your character, and it's so important. I'm sure you know people who are extremely talented. It could be personally, you know those people personally. It might be people on TV or famous people, very, very talented, but they're not nice people to be around. That talks more of your character. Then let's see. The next point. So I have also learned that not forgiving people or unforgiveness, it's a very, very heavy thing to carry. And it's got cousins. The cousins are bitterness, resentment. They are the cousins. And you need to make a choice. Forgiving somebody is actually a choice. And I know from personal experience that it can be very, 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 very difficult to forgive some people and to forgive some things, especially repeat offenders. So I'll talk about those later. As it, like, obviously if someone keeps being repeat offenses, you need to forgive them, but you can't keep having them in your space lest you end up, being the one who sins, because when you don't forgive, it's now an issue between you and God. So those are repeat offenses, but it becomes more and more difficult maybe to forgive people who keep doing stuff to you. But even those who don't and they've done it once, you need to forgive and let go. And I've found that when it's difficult, I've had to ask the Lord sometimes to literally say, this person, their name, and please help me, Lord. This is what they've done to me. It's not that he doesn't know, but more like I have to let it out. I have to get it out of my system. Please help me to forgive this person. And sometimes forgiveness, a lot of times, is actually a process. But what matters is the decision. Did you decide to forgive that person, or you're saying, no, I will never forgive you? And that kind of talk is it's very dangerous, because remember that the Word of God tells us that you will be forgiven if you also forgive other people. But what I'm saying is, I know, because I've lived through it, that it's difficult to forgive people. And they may not deserve it. They may not think they've wronged you. They may not ask for forgiveness. Honestly and truly speaking, that makes it even more difficult to be able to actually forgive them. But you need to. And I believe that when you forgive, it's almost like you set yourself out of a prison. And you have more peace, honestly, if the truth be told, and your pillow is softer at night. And then on the other hand, you need to also ask for forgiveness. And that's a very humbling thing. You'll eat some humble pie, but I've come across those situations where, for me personally, I've had to look for people here and there. It's happened 2 or 3 times, and ask for forgiveness for something I really felt in my spirit that, I need to ask for forgiveness for something. And I've asked them for forgiveness. I think maybe the most extreme case might have been after 10 years. And I looked for them. They'd moved from Zimbabwe, but I found them. They were in Australia, I think, or something, and I sent them a message. And 1 or 2 other people were here, and I asked them to forgive me. And the strange thing is, then they also said, please also forgive me. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm thinking, for what? I thought I'm the one who did something wrong. And of course I say, of course I'll forgive you. And so this is one thing I've learned to do. It's very hard, but I've learned to forgive people. Sometimes it's hard, and sometimes it's a process. And sometimes it can take long. Sometimes it's actually, like instant. So yeah, we need to forgive and to release people. And if someone asks me to forgive them, I will always say, I forgive you. But of course I do forgive even if they don't ask. But I would definitely, it's really a horrible thing when someone says to you, please forgive me, and then the other person just keeps quiet. Because it's pride on the other person. It's either they don't want to tell you that I've forgiven you, or something like that. And then when you forgive somebody, it doesn't mean necessarily that your buddy's your chum-chum. Or the level of relationship is the same. Sometimes it's I forgive you, and then that's it. You love them and you leave them, but you might just wave to them if you see them, because then you can't then ignore them, and because then it means maybe you still haven't really forgiven them, but you're not going to go and have coffee with them maybe, or hang out with them. They won't be in your inner circle, or they may not be in your life, but you've forgiven them, you've released them, you don't hold anything against them anymore, you no longer have a grudge. And I know that it can be difficult, but God says, you need to forgive. He doesn't always call us to do easy things, but they're necessary things. And imagine how much you're forgiven. Can you imagine if God said to you, well, I'll think about it, or I don't forgive you? So forgiveness is so important. That's why I spent a lot of time on it. And then the next thing, so don't be hung up on titles and positions. I'm just one of those people who I'm not really a big one for titles always being in the forefront and positions and that kind of thing. I'm more interested in functionality and on impact. What are you actually doing? Are you actually making a difference? And of course, some things in life, inevitably, you have to have a title. But you know what? There's so many people also who do things and they don't have a title for those things that they do. And I think that's okay. So we don't need to be hung up or always be emphasizing people's titles and people's positions, because at the end of the day, like I saw this quote, and I think I've shared it on social media, where at the end of our lives, God is going to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. Enter into your rest. He's not going to say, well done, my good and faithful CEO, or good and faithful prophetess, or good and faithful pastor, or good and faithful whatever. He's just going to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. So that tells you a lot. And then So being humble, that is so important. And I just want to say though now that a lot of the things I'm sharing, some of them they overlap. They're not necessarily in black and white. There's overlap. So being humble, it pops up in some of the other things that I'm going to talk about. So it's important to be humble. And I'll say this now before I forget what I want to say concerning it, the very most important thing. The Word of God says that God resists the proud. So being proud is opposite to being humble. Now, can you imagine? I don't want to live a life I don't where God resists me. Can you imagine what that is like? How will it be like if God is resisting what you're doing? God, you don't want that. You seriously don't want that. So we need to make a choice and choose to be humble and ask God to help us to be humble. Sometimes it's obvious when people are not humble, they're proud. Sometimes it's not. It can be an attitude of the heart. And I've had to ask God. There's sometimes that I've said, Lord, God has shown me that here at Tsunge you're being full of pride. And I've had to deal with that and say, I'm sorry, Lord, please forgive me. And sometimes it's obvious, like someone can be bragging or they show off, but you have to really examine yourself and see that you're not just proud. You can look humble to the world and can be full of pride inside. So I'll give you examples. So, when you mingle with other people and you don't mind who they are, that's a sign of humility. You don't look down on people. It's not always about you and you're always highlighting your things, that kind of thing. That shows, pride. And then the most dangerous, I think, is the one that's inside, because you can't see into someone's heart. And people are saying, oh, you're so humble, you're so what, and sometimes you're not. And sometimes you are. It's only God really can see your heart. So we need to be people who are full of humility. And then the next point. Okay, I love this one of my favorite ones. So as you can see, I'm already smiling. So you need to smile and you need to be happy. You need to be full of joy. And I'm very much like that. I'm not like that all the time. I can also be very going to be serious and it's not time to play. And I'm doing something, I'm focused. But a lot of times I am so smiley and I laugh a lot. I think you've seen it. I share funny things on Facebook from time to time. And I put hashtags, laughing is good for the soul. And you know what? It's been shown that it is good for you because it releases these chemicals in your body. It improves your mood and it just helps you, to be lighter, if I would say, and just happy when you're smiling and laughing. And I think that sometimes people are too serious. Like I said, you can't be laughing. There's a time for that. But honestly, there's some people I even know that these people, I'm not going to send a joke on WhatsApp. Some have tried and either they don't say anything. You don't have to laugh at every joke. Not every joke is funny, but I have my people who I send funny things to and they also send me. Because I laugh a lot. I've always been like that, And, I've been like that, but I didn't know to what extent until about, 2013 is 11 years ago, when I was leaving my last workplace. And you know what they gave me for my gift? They gave me these containers. It's a set of, I think, 3 or 4 containers. And guess what? They had smiling faces. And I was like, oh, that's different. And they said to me, well, we thought we'd give you that because you're always smiling. And I was like, wow, thank you. That is so sweet. I didn't actually, realize that. I didn't realize that I smile that much. But yeah, it's good to smile. It's good to be happy. The joy of the Lord is our strength. And you want to be strong. You have to be strong in your spirit. You want to be strong in this life. And so you have to have joy to be strong. The joy of the Lord is your strength. So yeah, make sure that from time to time you're laughing, you're smiling. It's good to do that. Yeah, okay. And then I've also learned that there's seasons of sacrifice and seasons of isolation. And I know many of you've experienced that. Now, when I talk about sacrifice, I think a good example is when you have babies, because I have to talk about maybe what I've experienced. So I remember I've got 4 kids, and when they were babies, I know that for those years, my sleep was limited. I had to sacrifice my sleep. And why? Because when they were awake, I had to be awake in the night. So obviously I couldn't have my 7-8 hours sleep and looking after them. And maybe they were waking every 2 hours and that kind of thing for a season. So that's why I said it's a season. It's not lifelong. It's got a beginning and it's got an ending. So when that happened, for me it was a joy, even though I was going through that season, because you know what, I loved having children. I loved my babies. In fact, I wish I'd had another one. So yeah, you do go through those seasons. When I talk about sleeping and sacrificing sleep, it's not just to do with babies. You find, I know you probably have experienced this, you know, when you are studying, you have to sacrifice sleep. Maybe you can only have 3-4 hours sleep so that you can cover all the material you want to cover. And another time, like of late, especially for me now, I'm in that season where I have to sacrifice sleep so that I can pray, because I found that certain hours are more effective. So sometimes those seasons, they're there throughout your life, but not all the time. So that's that, sacrificing like your sleep. But there are other things you have to sacrifice. Sometimes it's your time for other things, your money. And then the other one I experienced in my life, an example of a season, is a season of isolation. And I think a lot of you must also be familiar with that. Studying, also you have to isolate yourself. If you really want to do well, you need to spend time and say, no, I can't come for this. So you'll be sacrificing. It's related to sacrificing, you know, going out and hanging out with friends. And if you want to do a lot of that, you can do that, and it's good. But you know, I believe there's some callings or some purposes that require you to do more of the isolation. I'll give you an example. I'm a writer, and I feel like for things like writing, for things like doing videos, and maybe also people who preach and so forth, okay, which I don't do, but I think the people who do that, I think you do need to sacrifice a lot of time and get away from the crowd so that you can hear what God is saying, so that you can pray, so that you can get your notes ready, so that you can prepare your message. I find that I spend a lot of time doing that, and I love doing it. Sometimes I have to do it during lunch, or I have to do it in the evenings or on weekends. But with writing, I needed to do that. Otherwise, I simply wasn't going to write, you know, my book. It's very idealistic to say I want to write a book, but you can't be partying the whole time and socializing the whole time and going for coffee. I love going for coffee and so on, you know, with the people that I relate to and my inner circle. But you can't do that the whole time if you want to achieve certain things. So it's up to you now what you prioritize. You will definitely have your times for drinking coffee and so forth. But if you've got an end, like a goal, and you've got certain timelines that you want to meet, then you've got to know what you need to sacrifice now, so that you can then have fun with your friends and all that and chat while you're looking at your book. How about that? So yeah, I've experienced that quite a lot. And you know what? I wanted to say it's actually worth it. It's not that you're ignoring people or anything, but you're doing something, you know? You're doing something. It's like somebody wants to cook. You can't be sitting with your friends. Things will burn in the kitchen. You need to get away from them and prepare. So sometimes you need to be preparing something on your own. And then you bring it and give everybody food, and everyone's going to enjoy it, isn't it? Maybe that's your gifting, let's just say, cooking. So in the same way, if you want to write a book, if you want to do certain things, you gotta go. If you're an artist and you want people to enjoy the painting and buy it or come and see your exhibition, you've got to go away. You've got to prepare. So there are seasons of preparation. Okay, and then also this one, I'll make it short. Patience. So I always used to think, okay, patience is just waiting. So waiting. But you know what? I came to realize that patience is waiting, but with a good attitude. Somebody actually said that. I think it was Joyce Meyer, if I'm not mistaken. So, which means you're not grouchy, you're not complaining and all that. You are waiting, but with a good attitude. So maybe you can wait and pray or something like that. So patience is waiting, you know, with a good attitude. And another lesson that I have picked up over the years, and wow, this is a big one for me. It's never too late. Take it from me. I'm 53. I don't know. Maybe for some people they'll say that's old. I don't say so. And I say to my kids, I'm not old, I'm older. So I discovered my purpose or my reason for being well into my 40s. And, you know, I think maybe some people might be blessed to discover it earlier. For me, it wasn't like that. It took me a very, very long time. And the thing is, what brought it about is I was restless in my spirit. And I was like, there's something missing. You know, you can have everything. You have your home, you've got your kids, you've got your job. But you're like, there's something missing. There is something I'm supposed to be doing that I'm not doing. What is it? So through searching, through praying, and you know what? You're going to have to want to know your purpose or know what your reason for being is for you to find it. So I realized that it's because I'm supposed to be doing something else, but I don't know what it is. So I had to articulate my passion. I had to discover my giftings. And how did I do that? Through prayer and through maybe what people commented about certain things through what I enjoyed doing and through what I was good at. So after all those things, I then realized that, oh, okay, this is what God wants me to do. So I'll go with that. And even then, I'll say to you right now, finding your purpose is a journey. So you start off not being clueless, maybe not knowing what it is. Then you discover what it is, or you think you have, and then God refines it, breaks it down more. And then when you found it, God also says, okay, express it like this. Then you do. Then He changes it, not changes it, then He refines it. Maybe it's a better word. And then He says that express it in this way, express it in that way. So I believe it's lifelong in a way. But my message concerning that particular point is it's never too late. And you know what? God can do in 1 year, He can make you do something which would have naturally taken 10 years. Or maybe has taken other people 10 years or 15 years. God is capable of doing that. So don't worry about that. I'm sure you've read all these stories about people who started things later in life. So, for whatever reason, but you just need to not give up and stay connected to God. Okay, and then learning new ways. I'll give you another example from my life. I've learned that you can learn to be a certain way. So why I'm saying that is sometimes people use personalities as an excuse. They just say, that's just the way I am. That's just the way I am. I can't help it. That's the way that I am. And that's an excuse sometimes, to stay a certain way. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So in the natural, or rather, what can I say? Maybe not in the natural, but I'm naturally a task-orientated person. So I'm one of those people who I will say, this is something that I want to do. This is what needs to be done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's as simple as that. That's how I see it. Let's do it. So I'll go for it. And my natural me will just say, we need to do it no matter what. No matter who's in the way, they just have to get out of the way. We're going to do this thing. We're going to achieve it. And so I came to realize over time, and God actually showed me this. And also, through 1 or 2 workshops at church, actually, that, you can't be totally task-orientated and not people-orientated. I had to learn to be like that. And I know a lot of people who know me think that I'm people-orientated. I am now, but I'm not naturally like that. But I have learned to be like that. I think maybe now it comes as second nature. But what do I mean by that? So you can do things and achieve things, but you don't have to step on people's toes. You must consider other people on the way. It's almost sort of related to what I was saying at the beginning, that you can do things and reach a certain goal, but it's not like whatever it takes and I don't care who's on my way and that kind of thing. Although I wasn't totally like that, but to a large degree I was more like I need to get something done, whatever it takes, I need to get it done. So I learned to sort of relate to people, consider people and that kind of thing, but still get those things done. Now, on the other hand, there are people who are totally or more people orientated, and I'll tell you the disadvantage of that, so that you can see that you also have to learn to be a little bit more task orientated and get things done. People who are people orientated, okay, that sounds funny. People who are people orientated, those who are people orientated, people love them. They bring biscuits, I think, to work. They talk with people, they mingle with everyone, they get on with everyone, they relate to everyone very well and chatty and all that. And that's fine. That sounds nice, doesn't it? But sometimes those people don't get anything done, or they get things done late, or they miss deadlines and so on. So what am I saying? You can learn to be you can be people-oriented or task-oriented and learn to give in a little bit and learn to be a certain way, so that you relate to people well at the end of the day. You get on with people, you're chatty, you're nice, but you also get things done. So I had to learn to be like that. So like now I'm actually quite a lot people orientated, and I actually chat and talk to everybody. I have no problems with that. Okay. Okay, this is sort of related to what I've just commented and said. So in life, you've got to know that relationships cannot be the same, and that relationships, some of them, they are for a season. Now, sometimes it's sad because people maybe would have said, oh, I want this person to be in my life forever, or they feel the same about you, whoever those people may be, but sometimes it's not like that. And so some people are in your life just for a while, and then that's it. You lose touch or whatever. Don't burn bridges. I'll talk about that later. But you just lose touch, and you just find they're not there anymore. Then some people stay in your life. Now, what I've learned as well is that when people stay in your life, there's also different degrees of relating. You can have people in your inner circle, and those should only be a handful. They should just be a few. You can't have 10 or 20, I don't believe, people in your inner circle. I don't think so. I don't know. And for some reason. And then you have people who, so there's your inner circle, and I'm sure you can classify this in different ways. So there's people in your inner circle, then there's people you keep at arm's length. I'm saying that because you can determine the level of relating. Then there are people who are in the peripheries, who are at the edge. You know, they're not really, maybe they're acquaintances or people that you don't really probably even go to coffee with them and so on. Maybe these ones are really chum, your buddies. And then the people who are not in your life, they've fallen off the edges for some reason, whatever the reason may be. So relationships have seasons. Some people will be in your life forever, lifelong, but it's not everybody, and it's just something you have to accept. And people have to accept the same about you. You will not be in other people's lives forever, but you will be for certain ones, of course. There's some people who just, you know, God has ordained for them to be like in your life. And then also, I just want to talk about, you know, when we read the Word of God, we have to live it. So the Bible says we must mourn with those who mourn, rejoice with those who rejoice. So I think when I was younger, I wasn't doing very well on the mourning with those who mourn. I did feel for them and so on, but I didn't used to attend funerals and make that much effort, I found, in my life. But I changed that as I got older. I actually would always make, if it's somebody that I know who passed on, or it's a relative of somebody, I would make the effort. And even now I do that. And I think it's so important. If you can, you know, I mean, you can send a message if you really can't go, but if you can, do go. And it's something that I learned. And like I'm saying, these are things that we know. These are things maybe that you can say are simple, but I wasn't always doing that when I was the younger me, the younger Tsungi. And it's something that I learned, that it's so important to mourn with those who mourn. And there's a friend of mine, and I saw that when their dad passed on, I attended, I actually went with them to the rural areas. I made an effort, and we went for the whole day. And I could see that he was very appreciative. And because of that, I could see that after that something changed. They reached out to me and we became very good friends. And I truly believe I was just doing it because it's somebody that I knew. I wasn't close to them. And I made the effort. I felt for them. And I genuinely meant it. And I actually went, sacrificed the day. And it was fine with me. I just thought, let me go and just be with this person. You know, it's really sad they've lost their dad, and I knew what that felt like because I had lost my dad, I think, just a few years before that. Maybe I lost my dad in 2013. I can't remember which year they lost their dad, and I went. And after that, you know, I didn't even know that was going to happen. They reached out to me, but that's just something that was a byproduct of that. You know, I didn't know that was going to happen. And then I want to talk about rejoicing with those who rejoice, because I think our culture is very good at mourning with those who mourn, generally speaking. Like, you see all sorts of people here, even people who you didn't know might come, or we're not talking to you that much, but when someone passes on, they tend to come, isn't it? But rejoicing with those who rejoice, unless it's something like big, like a wedding or something, I've found that on a personal level, on a close-up level, people are not so good at doing that sometimes. Maybe for birthdays, I don't know. But people don't celebrate others, you know, maybe when they publish a book, or maybe they get a promotion. And I think LinkedIn is very good at this. I love it, because LinkedIn will prompt you and say, congratulate this person, they've just been promoted, or they've got a new position, or they'll say happy birthday to these people. I like LinkedIn, they prompt you to do that. But I've found that I like to do that, and I've tried to improve on that. There's always room for improvement, and you know what, hey, on some of these things that I'm sharing, I'm not even necessarily there yet, but maybe I wasn't where I used to be. So there's always room for improvement, I believe, for some of these things. So I found that people generally, they just, I don't know, what could you say, apathetic, or they just, some, I don't know, they just don't want to congratulate you. But you know what, I think that if you want to celebrate someone, you need to express it. You can't tell me that you're just keeping quiet and you're saying, well, I'm happy for them and so on, and you're not expressing it. It doesn't have to be on social media. You could send them a message, you could phone them, you can go to their house, whatever. But it's nice to, when you know something has happened in someone's life, someone that you know, you could just say, well done, or congratulations, or send them a private message, I don't know. But it's good to do that, because you're rejoicing with those who rejoice. It can't just be for big things that are obvious, you know what I mean, like weddings. So I think we need to do that. And the thing is, what I found in life, that you may do that for some people and they will not do it back for you. But don't change to stoop low and become that person who doesn't celebrate other people just because they're not going to do it back. Just keep on doing good. God sees. It will come back in another way, and not necessarily from that person. So yeah, celebrate people. And when people have had a loss, death, or other things, identify with them, go and comfort them. And then the other thing I want to talk about is, we need to support each other and not always be competing. I'm a big one for that. So maybe the thing is sometimes you can't find enough people who are like-minded, but collaborating in your work, in different things, is a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing. I had the opportunity of doing that not too long back. I hope you're watching this, Shami Fox. So she is also a writer. She also talks about hope. She also does videos. So you can see there we've got a commonality, but there's no need to be competing. Why? We collaborated. So she asked me to come on her podcast, which she's been doing for a while now, but I was the first guest there, okay? And then a few months later, I asked her to come on to my Come Testify, my channel, okay, Weekend Reflections with Tsungi, but under the brand Come Testify, because she was testifying about something. And it was so nice. I enjoyed it, and I'd love to do more. I like collaborating with people, and I would love to do that, more of that in the future. And if you are watching and you'd like to collaborate with me, then please get hold of me. I'm sure you can find my details if you're watching this, whether it's on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, on LinkedIn or Facebook. Do get hold of me and we can see what we can do together. I think it's beautiful when people collaborate. You're stronger together. We're stronger together. And then the other thing I've learned is that with maturity and getting older, the things that used to bother you, they don't bother you as much. When I was younger and I look back to my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, I'm like, now I'm looking back and I'm like, seriously? Was I bothered about these things? And now I'm like, they don't bother me. And one of those things, I used to always hear people who are older than me saying, when you're older in your 40s and 50s, you don't really care what people do, what people think. You just do your own thing. Now I'm at that age and I know what they mean. And I don't. I wouldn't say, okay, don't care, but I don't mind what people think. And as long as I'm pleasing God. There's a scripture that says, am I now trying to please man, or am I trying to please God? Or am I seeking God's approval? Okay, I'm going to have it when, I'm going to put down the scripture. But I'm like, no, I can't stop doing something just because someone doesn't like me or just because they don't agree with what I'm saying or doing. I'm going to do what God has called me to do. And I'm going to please God. And I don't care. I don't mind if someone else thinks otherwise. They're going to have to deal with that. But I didn't have that attitude before. I used to care so much about what people think. I'm like, oh my gosh. And you know what? You can't please everybody. You can't. And like I read this thing, this caption. It says that you're not pizza. You can't make everybody happy. And now I'm so much at peace with just doing what I think I should be doing. So yeah. And then, wow, this is a big one. So, and it will boil down in the end to relationships. I'll start off by asking you a question. Can you hate the sun for shining? It's doing what it was created to do. Can you truly hate the sun for shining? Can you dislike a fish for swimming in water? It's doing what it was created to do. Okay, I'm not talking about being eaten at this stage. I'm looking at it as a fish is created to be in water, swimming. So just have that in mind as I talk about this next point. So what I wanted to say about this is sometimes the people who you know, because strangers you probably wouldn't have much to do with them concerning this one, you're not going to know, but there can be people who they admire you and you inspire them. And inspiration comes in different ways. It's not usually necessarily in the field that you're in. You can inspire someone who's doing something totally different than you. You may inspire people, maybe you're doing sort of what you're doing. But if you're a person who does many different things, it wouldn't be everything that you're doing. The point is, people can motivate you, people can inspire you, and you end up admiring them. But you know what? For a select few, unfortunately, that admiration and being inspired can easily turn into something else. It can turn into being annoyed or irritated by someone's success or someone's progress. And then from there it can turn into, well, I can also do what they're doing. Why can't I also do that? And it can also then turn into even hatred. And then it can also turn into unhealthy competition. And what do I mean by that? That maybe they'll try to do exactly the same thing you're doing. And it doesn't always work. they might have some measure of success, but sometimes it can be disaster. It can be that it just didn't work. And why am I saying this? Because you know what, as much as you can't be the only person called to write books, or the only person called to do videos and so forth and different things, or the only person called to preach, obviously not. But if you've got people in your circle who they do other things, but now because you inspire them, you admire them, I mean, they admire you and so on, now they're getting jealous. What I actually wanted to say is being inspired and admiring someone can very easily turn into being envious of someone, being jealous of someone, competing with someone, wishing you were doing what they were doing. And why I say that is because people have different capabilities, people have different talents, gifts, passion, purpose, and even anointing. So it's very difficult to, to stay close to people who then change. And people do change. That's one of the things I've noticed in life. Not everybody changes, and some it's fine, they'll stay, just like you inspire them and so on. And also you in turn, because this is dangerous, we also have to watch out for this. I also have to watch out for this. There are people that I admire, people that inspire me, but I mustn't now say, I can also do that. Why can't I also do that? I can do better than them. I can compete with them. And it now turns ugly, as in, it's not even about collaborating. No, they're doing their own thing. And they don't congratulate you. They don't say well done. They don't. It's sad, hey. This is really sad. They don't acknowledge you. These are people that people who are close. I'm not talking about strangers, but they want to do what you're doing. They don't want to learn from you. They now just want to compete with you. So you can't really do anything about that. But with time, those relationships will inevitably fizzle out. That's what I can say. And I've learned this and I've experienced this. Very sad, but it happens because you can't want to be somebody else. You can't do that. God made us to be original. So why be a photocopy when you can be original, And I'm not saying that you don't learn from people, you don't get mentored, and you don't take, some wisdom nuggets. And you might even want to write a book and say, help me, how did you write your book? That's fine, but not when now the person is trying to do everything that you're doing and they're trying to outdo you, and they're just showing you that even though there's someone who's meant to be a friend or close, but they're now trying to outdo you and compete with you and just show you that, I can do whatever you're doing as well. And that kind of attitude, I don't think that's good. I don't think that's a good thing at all. So this is something that I've also learned in life. And it happens. People are like that. And it's sad when you see this. It's like me, I admire people. And the things that they do, there's giftings they've got, and I can't do those things. So I stick to my lane. And I do what I know I'm called to do. And I admire them, and I clap for them, and I congratulate them, and I celebrate with them. For me, it ends there. I don't try and now compete and outdo and dump what I'm doing and take on what they're doing. It's not a good idea. And I don't know how God looks at that. So now to come back to my statement. So when all this turns ugly and you start hating somebody, but you're hating them for doing the work they were called to do by God. And I'm not talking about things in the ministry as such. It could be different things. It could be a painter. It could be opening a bakery, isn't it? It could be doing videos. But you can't hate somebody. You can't hate me because I'm doing what I'm called to do. And if you do, I think that is a big problem between you and God, because God gave you somebody that gift. And now you're busy hating on them. I don't know how God looks at that. And you're trying to take on something which is not what you're meant to be doing. Those people, obviously those relationships will just fizzle out. So that's a sad thing, but it's nothing that you've done. It's more the attitude of the other person. I don't know how many of you have experienced that kind of thing. The other thing I wanted to say was we shouldn't burn bridges in life. And by this I'm saying, okay, I've just talked about this one where things fizzle out. So there's things where you lose touch. You don't see each other for years, and then you bump into each other after 10, 20 years. Oh, hi, gosh, you're still around. So what happened there? You just lost touch, isn't it? You didn't bang the phone and say, I never want to talk to you again, or say that I hate you, or I'll never forgive you. When you do those kind of things, you are burning bridges. And don't do that, because you never know. You never know when you have to cross and get to the other side and ask them for help for something, or you come across them in your space, or they need to help you in an area, or your family member, or it's a doctor and you go to the trauma center and they're the doctor on duty. Don't burn bridges with people. You can, of course, like I'm saying, you can have different levels of relationships, or you can stop talking to certain people, but stopping to talk to someone is not the same. as burning a bridge. That's really when you, the way you part is ugly and you parted ways in a bad way. So I've learned that you mustn't burn bridges. In as far as it depends on you. I mean, some people will bang the phone on you. Some people will say, I never want to talk to you again. And that hurts. And sometimes you're in the wrong, yes. That's why I said all these things are interrelated. There's forgiving, you need to forgive, they need to forgive you. But maybe you've done everything you can to live at peace. Like the word says, live at peace with all men, and as far as depends on you. Maybe you did something wrong and you're sorry and you've tried to explain to yourself, but they're not having it. They're like, I don't want to talk to you again. I don't want to see you again and so on. So now what happens? Tell me, when that person needs your help, it's going to be very humbling. It's going to be very difficult for them to get hold of you. But you know what? When that happens and people have burned bridges with me, I've learned to just say, okay, how can I help you? And so on. Also, just showing that forgiving attitude and say, no, it's fine. I know this person banged the phone on me, or they just stopped talking to me for whatever reason. Or they just had some nasty words to say, or they showed me that, I don't care about you. I don't care about what you're saying, whatever. And then they left my life. So it didn't end well from their side, isn't it? I just watched them like, it's fine. But then what if they come looking for you one day? So don't do the same. Don't do that. Be mindful of the company you keep. I'm talking a lot about relationships because, I've lived this life and I've had relationships and I've observed and I've learned things. So you need to be careful of the company you keep. People are not perfect, but you decide the people you hang around with. It still boils down to this inner circle, outer circle, and then, those you keep at arm's length, and then outer circle. You know what? There's some people that you may not want to be in your life, but they have to be for whatever reason. And then there's people who you choose, really, also, and you can choose the level also of friendship. So if you know that somebody is a thief or they're a robber, or you know that someone practices the occult, why would you be chum-chum with that person? Why would they be really one of your closest friends? Imagine that there's a robbery and you hang out with someone who steals, who robs banks, and then they successfully rob a bank and disappear. Do you know that when the police are looking for him, they'll ask around, who do they hang around with? And they'll come knocking at your door because in their view, birds of a feather maybe flock together, or maybe not even that, they just know that you know that person, you're connected. And they said, we said that you are their best friend or their friend. Where is he? And you'd be like, I don't know where they are. So that's not good, to be, I'm not saying be connected only to perfect people, but no, they're just certain things that you don't need to be close to people who do certain things. Like I gave you an example of the occult. No, that's a no. And you'd rather fear God than man. Just need to tell someone that I can't be close to you if this is what you're doing. You may not cut them out of your life, and it may be someone that you can't cut out of your life, but don't let them be close to you because it will affect your life, that I can guarantee you, in a negative way. So you don't need to be close. If you watch African movies, they'll say some wicked people. You don't need to be around those people. You don't need to be. Birds of a feather flock together, and the Bible says that how can two walk together unless they're in agreement? So people will just assume you do the same thing. I'm not saying you're perfect, no, but there's certain things that are a no. You just can't be doing that. You can't be hanging around with people who do that. You may talk to them and say hi and or maybe they're related to you, whatever. Like I'm saying, some people have to stay in your life, but you don't need to be chum and buddies with them. And you know what? It's easy to pull someone from the good side to the bad side than for you to pull someone from the bad side to come to the good side. So some people will say, no, I'm ministering to them. I'm trying to get them to know the Lord. But do you really have to be hanging around with them to do that? And for how long? Because you'll end up being influenced and changing. Perhaps there's that danger. It's always there. So why would you do that? Why would you do that? And a company of fools suffers harm. The word doesn't change for anybody. That will happen. So just make sure you hang around, not with perfect people. There aren't any. People who are wise, people who are godly, people who are going somewhere with their lives. I've learned that you need to be teachable and be willing to learn from other people. The day that you think you know everything is a sad day. And I said these points overlap. So a humble person will learn from other people. A humble person will take advice. Of course, don't take it from just willy-nilly from anybody. You need to take it from wise people. But when someone gives you advice, look at it, analyze it and see that, is this junk? Are they talking nonsense? Or is there some truth in it? Be humble enough to listen to people's advice, even if you're too proud to go back to say you were right and think. You know that there are people who will hear good advice and they say, oh, no, I'm not doing it. And sometimes it's not that the advice is not good, but it came from somebody. You know, God can use anybody, but some people are so proud, they will not take good advice because of the source. I don't know, what do you think? I don't think that's a good idea, but I know it can be tempting. All these things, sometimes we slip up and do some of these things, but we need to, when I look at my life, I evaluate and say, okay, here I need to change, here I mustn't do this, but it's not a good idea not to be teachable. And also, I'm of the opinion that you can learn from anybody. You can learn from the person who works for you at home, You can learn from the God. When you chat with people and mingle with people from all walks of life, you can learn from them. And for me, I know people celebrate educational achievement, and that's the way the system is, even, in the world, that people are always like, you need to do this, you need to pass, you need to go to university, you need to do, and it's fine. But just bear in mind that not everyone is academic, but that's another story. I'm not going to go into that. But that's one thing I've learned. Not everybody is academic, but they can excel in other things. But, learning is not just about being in the classroom and getting your degree and then getting your master's and getting your PhD. I could say that because I've done my PhD, but I don't talk about it a lot and so on, because that's not the most important thing in my life. I appreciate that God helped me to do it, and I've got it, and I truly am grateful for that. But you have to continue learning from people. That's one of the biggest ways. You talk to people, listen to people, be humble, learn from and hear what they have to say. Learn from people who are not educated. Learn from older people, wise people, from your grandmothers and people like that. Learn from books, huge one. Read. If you don't read, I don't know, that's a huge chunk of learning. I'm not sure where you're going to get a lot of your learning from. You need to be reading. You know what? About 10 years ago, I wanted to publish, I was looking for a publisher in Zimbabwe, and I went to look for them, had a chat with them, and they told me something very sad. They told me, and that's 10 years ago, I don't know if it has changed. They said 10% of Zimbabweans read books. And I was like, what? 10%? And they said yes. And so I was thinking to myself, okay, so of that 10%, imagine what your chances are of your book being bought or read. Because of that 10%, some want sci-fi, some want horror, some want romance, some want fiction, some want history, some may want religious things. So I was like, gosh, that's quite sad. And there's a saying that says, if you want to hide something from an African, put it in a book. I hope that has changed, and I hope that is not true anymore. I don't know. I haven't done my research and looked up that particular aspect. But you need to be reading. And I know people say, well, writers are readers. But you know what? I'm actually naturally not a reader. I mean, I used to read for things like studying and all that, and to get through school, but I'm not naturally a reader as well. This is something I had to learn to be that way. Remember, I talked about learning to be a certain way. I'm actually not naturally a reader. I have to actually, I don't want to say crank myself up, but I have to plan. I have to set goals so that I make sure I read. So I'll say I need a book a month and so on to make myself read, because I'm not naturally a reader. I love writing, yes, but I've now started, that habit of reading, and you find you learn so much. Of course, be choosy with the books you read, and I know I don't only read spiritual books. I think you can learn from other types of books as well. So I do read other types of books, but it's important. That's one way you can increase your knowledge. So the other thing I've learned, and this one is a short one, not everyone's going to like you, and not everybody has to like you, and that's perfectly fine. I don't even like everybody. You don't even like everybody, like a caption said once. So why should everybody like you? They won't. And I actually also saw this caption that there's something seriously wrong if everybody likes you. There's something wrong. So I don't know, would that mean maybe you're a people pleaser? You always adapt according to who it is, or what? I don't know. But not everyone has to like you. Not everyone has to like you. I remember once sitting with my aunt, I'll just say aunt, I don't want the person to be identified, and I was complaining about a relative, saying, I've never ever done anything to this person, but they don't like me, I don't know what I can do. And you know what she said to me? I thought she was going to sympathize with me and say, tell me more. She said to me, Tsungi, you can't expect everyone to like you. So yeah, I had to swallow that bitter pill, and I had to accept it. Anyway, it was words of wisdom, and it actually set me free. From that day, I was like, you know what? She's right. Not everybody has to like me. I'm going to get on with my life. They have to deal with the issue. If they don't like me, that's their own problem, honestly. And sometimes people don't like you, yes, because you can say they're justified. Then there are people who just don't like you. They can just look at you and just decide, I don't like her. I just don't. And some people don't like you because of what you're doing. Some people don't like you because some people like you. And oh, come on, it doesn't end. So just don't worry about that. Okay, the other thing I've learned is that, hey, I told you about people changing in life. They do. Let's just make sure we don't change unless we're changing for the better. People can be inconsistent, honestly, and I've experienced this in my own life. Do you know that there's something seriously wrong if the same person can be thought of in totally different ways? What I'm saying is, like, one group of people think somebody's an angel and they're so nice and they're this and that, and then the other people will be like, no, you can't be talking about the same person. That person that we know, unless it's somebody else you're talking about, they're so witchy. And like I said, like the African movies, they are wicked, wicked, wicked. And you're like, no, they're not. They're very nice, but they're always nice to me and so on. And someone like, well, they're not to me. I think there's something wrong with that. I'm sorry, but it can't be so opposite. Maybe if they're like, oh, no, they're nice, but sometimes they can be a bit moody or whatever. Not if they're totally opposite. No, no. You can't, I don't think so. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, look that up. It's like having a double personality. You can't be totally different with one group of people. And with another group of people, you're the total opposite. I think that is a difficult thing to accept, and it's difficult to hang around with people like that because you don't know tomorrow how they're going to behave towards you. You can't be like that. You need to be consistent. If you're going to be nice, then just be nice to everybody. And don't be horrible to people or mean. Don't talk to them rather than to be mean. If you're going to be mean, then just be known as a mean person, which is not good. So I think it's not good to be, to be inconsistent. It's not a good thing. So another thing is, don't allow people to put you in a box. That's one thing I learned. It took me a while, but like someone said, if you don't define yourself, people will define you. And of course, some people, it's because they don't know you as well, or they last saw you when you were a certain way. I'll give you an example. I'm a pharmacist. So people that knew me back then, they just said, Tsungi is a pharmacist. And if they meet me, they'll say, hi, where's your pharmacy? And I'm like, no, I'm not even in retail anymore, and I'm not dealing with patients anymore. And it's fine, I can understand that. But the thing is, you need to be defining and telling the world who you are. Don't let them impose on you and tell you what you should be doing and who you are. I'll give you an example of defining yourself. If you go on LinkedIn, you have to put something in your bio. You have to put like a caption of who you are. Now, I'll tell you this right now. For me, I will not put my job title. And the reason is because that is not what defines me. That's something that I do. It's a major part of my life, but it's not who I am only. Fine, I'm a child of God. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I am actually also a mental health advocate and other things. I'm a writer and so on, but of course I can't put all those things. And also, so I had to narrow it down to the context of work, of not work, of the workspace, the market space, maybe, let me put it that way, because I said I wasn't going to put my work title. But if you go in, you will see my work position and title and what I've been doing from now up till, or since I started my work. But I don't put my work title because it doesn't represent everything I am. So I can't remember it all by heart, but my title on LinkedIn, the caption will say motivational communicator, author, health commodities expert. So there you can see that it's covering my work on the supply chain expert, but I'm also an author and I'm also very much into communication. So if someone was to look me up, they'll know that, okay, these are the areas that Tsungi is looking at in the market space. It's not just one area. That's why I don't put my work title, because I'm not defined only by my work. I'm defined by lots of different things. So I think it depends how you look at it, but that's how I look at it, that it's supposed to be a description of who I am in the marketplace. It's not meant to be equals my job title. No, that's, for me, I don't look at it like that. It's defining me, it's boxing me up and limiting me to just one thing and yet I do so many other things. Okay, I'm about to finish now. So I wanted to talk about health. So I'm very passionate about this. So I wanted to say that we pray for a long life and so forth, but sometimes we don't actually do the things we need to do to make sure. And as far as it depends on us, then we leave the rest to God, that we're living a healthy life. So I've learned, and I've become more health conscious as I've become older. Honestly, I have, because long ago, people will just say, "Oh, you're slim and you're fine and all that," but health is not defined by your frame or your size. I appreciate those compliments and so forth, but I came to realize a long time ago that no, it's not about that. Am I healthy inside? How's my blood? How's my cholesterol? How are my sugar levels? How's my blood pressure? How is my heart? How is my mental health? So I have tried to address all those things over the years. And so, of course, you must eat well, you must exercise, you must sleep well, have enough hours sleep. And then also I'm very much into just removing stress from my life, which is why I also make an effort to stay away from certain people, because I've experienced that with certain people, I wouldn't say they bring up my blood pressure, but they make me start to overthink and to be stressed and to start doubting myself, and I don't need that. And that is not good for my mental health. Or they leave you like semi-depressed and those kind of things, and throw in little remarks, mean little things, statements. So I try and stay away from those people as much as possible, or leave them in the peripheries. Like I said, these things are interconnected, these things overlap. So I try just to leave those things in the peripheries, those relationships, because some have to be in my life, but I leave them in the peripheries. So that is for my mental health. I am very particular about that. About my mental health. But one area that I feel people neglect is checkups. And I've started to be very religious about those since some years back. I think my late 40s, every year I go for a checkup. I've just come from one just the other week, last week. I do mine in February. And I go to the Well Women's Clinic, and there they check everything, things, ladies' issues, which is why I go there, but also other things that are not just general things, your kidney function, your liver function, all those kind of things. And then they send you off to have your lab test and all that. Then also I do my teeth, I do my eyes, and whatever else that I can do at the designated recommended times. So that is important, and that's something I wanted to share with you, to say I have learned that checkups are important. Health is important. Everything else is actually secondary. After your relationship with God and your family, you need health, because all the things you want to aspire to do, all the things you want to do, you're not going to do them if you're not here, if you're not on this earth. You don't want to go early and be with the Lord. You will go to be with the Lord, but why go early? Make sure you're healthy. Go for your checkups. And I know that it's a lot of effort. I find it a lot of effort, but I've just said this is something that I've got to do. Why I say that is because it does take time. Sometimes you need to take time off to go and do them, and it can take hours to cover everything. And it can take money. Sometimes you'll have shortfalls, even with a good medical aid, with some of the tests. And then it can take effort. Just making the appointment, they don't answer calls, you send on WhatsApp, then you have to actually go there. So people end up just not going. Sometimes for those reasons, or sometimes they're not bothered. But I always think prevention is better than cure. I know I work in the health profession, but it's true. Prevention is better, and some things can be caught early. Go for your checkups. Please do that. That's one thing I've learned. It's absolutely necessary. You just need to make the effort. Like someone said, if you don't make time for all these kind of things, you'll have to make time for your illness. So it's worth it to go for checkups. And some it's not even every year. Some it's every 2-3 years. Okay, some might be 6 months. Like you're supposed to have your teeth checked, I think. Isn't it? Every 6 months and so forth. So yeah, that's one thing I've learned, that health, you need to be in good health. Even to fulfill your purpose and to live here longer and to enjoy life, you must be healthy. So that's one thing that I've seen, that, we mustn't take that for granted. The other thing is regrets. When I look back at my life, I do have quite a few regrets, mainly from when I was much younger, and maybe a few from more recent years. And I've tried to put those behind me. And sometimes it's not issues of forgiveness and not forgiveness. Sometimes it's issues of choices I've made or not made. And I've had to deal with those as best as I can with God's help. But I just want to say, don't live in regret land. Because don't let yesterday's mistakes and things that you did continue to control you and to affect the future. Don't keep just regretting. You've got to leave some things behind. Some things you can't change, but move ahead and almost as if like you should have started a new leaf and be looking ahead. So I've learned that we all have regrets. I mean, we're going to go into what they are, but definitely, I'm sure everyone has things they regret having said certain things, having done certain things, and not done, and not having said, and so forth. But we don't need to stay in that place, because it can't be a good thing. And don't think and overthink and keep thinking about those kind of things which you can't do anything about. If there's something you need to deal with, or you need to ask someone forgiveness and certain things, then do that. But beyond things that you can't do, and you can't control people, leave it like that. And if you've done something to somebody and they can't forgive you, ask for forgiveness, for example. And if they don't want to, leave them. It's between them and God. Just pray for them. But don't, you may regret what you've done, but you can't do anything about it. And sometimes it's not to do with having done anything to anybody. It's just certain choices, like I said. Now you're the wiser, so you move ahead and try to live in a way where you don't have regrets. So with that, I am actually done. But I've got one last one to say, and this is to cap it all. I have learned that, God is my everything. Without God, I am nothing. Everything I have, the person I'm becoming, is because of God. Everything I have, family, material, everything comes from God. I can't really emphasize that enough. So I'll just leave it like that. We'll talk about that. That can be a whole series of videos, but like it really is true that in Him I live and move and have my being. And I'm so glad that I came to know the Lord when I was, in my 20s. So that's about 30 years now. And I'm loving my walk with Him. I hope that some of the things I've shared, that you can relate with them. I hope some of them have helped you. And I just wanted to reflect on my life. I have other points, but I didn't want to make this too long. I will share additional things at another stage. So I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, still enjoying my birthday. I think a birthday celebration is supposed to be a week long. So, still some days to go. So happy birthday to me once again. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you next time in the next video. Bye-bye for now.